Despite that Eminem song that was the movie's soundtrack single, 2018's Venom was actually a surprisingly good film. It got mixed reviews from critics and fans, but the box office success can't be denied. You know what they say, numbers don't lie. I was never really a math guy, so I'll just go out on a limb and assume that's true. It makes sense that the movie was a success too, seeing as how Venom is one of the most revered and beloved anti-heroes to ever grace a comic book page. He isn't exactly a good guy, but he isn't exactly a bad guy either. Heck, he isn't really even a guy. He's an alien symbiote that merges with pretty much any form of life it comes in contact with. Outside of maybe Deadpool, he's one of the most popular anti-heroes in comic book history. If you're unfamiliar with the Venom character, he's like this black sludge that comes from outer space that latches onto pretty much any kind of life form it can find and takes possession of them and gives the host some otherworldly super abilities. He likes to jump around and try out a couple different models because not everyone meshes the same. Throughout the years, there have been many different Venom hosts, including some of the biggest names in superhero folklore that we'll examine in just a bit, but in the 2018 film, there was one main host that Venom took a liking to. That was Tom Hardy's character Eddie Brock, a mild-mannered investigative journalist. Venom was such a success at the box office that Sony Studios has already confirmed a Venom 2 sequel due out in 2020. It's set to once again star Tom Hardy, so it's safe to assume that Eddie Brock will be back in the proverbial Venom saddle. While Sony still technically owns the rights to the character, and they're a completely separate entity than Marvel Studios, who produces all of the standard MCU films, it's not out of the realm of possibility that these two worlds collide at some point in the near future. After all, it all falls under the Marvel umbrella, and these characters have crossed paths countless times already on the paper pages. It would be a real shame if corporate copyright claims and multi-million-dollar licensing rights got in the way of the best possible product for the fans, right? I mean, what else are they doing this for other than to serve the fans and make the best possible product for them? That's why they make these movies, isn't it? What? Hello? Where's everybody going? Let's just say it's a possibility, alright? If Venom were to find himself over in the main MCU, the Disney one, who would be the ideal host? In the comics, there's a long list of characters who have been possessed by the symbiote. There's been dozens upon dozens of characters throughout the comics, but let's take a look at some of the more possible ones and the ones that are really worth discussing. We've already seen Eddie Brock, and it was pretty awesome, and we're almost surely going to see Eddie Brock as the host again in the near future. But there are other names that you might not suspect have some comic book precedents bonding with Venom. Of course, the first name that comes to any comic book fan's mind is Spider-Man. Venom and the web-slinger go together like peanut butter and jelly, like Jay-Z and Beyonce, like peanut butter and Jay-Z. I don't know, maybe the guy really likes Jiffy. Anyway, Peter Parker and the alien symbiote go back a long way and have a storied history with one another. They also happen to be the only two main Marvel characters that Sony holds the rights to. You see, Sony actually licenses out the Spider-Man character to Disney in a very complicated and convoluted agreement that sees Disney rake in on the merchandising while Sony grosses at the box office. It would make sense for Disney to just flat out purchase the characters once this agreement is done, because it just logistically doesn't make sense to have Spider-Man be such a massive part of the MCU while still remaining the intellectual property of another company. Then again, Sony probably won't be so keen on giving up the Venom character, who's been their only comic book related box office success. They have aspirations of building a whole Sony universe of characters, much like an MCU of their own. While that sounds cool and I'm sure they'd do a great job, maybe, it'd be a lot cooler of them if they just gave up the goods to Disney and let the professionals take care of it. The characters belong together and intertwine in storylines with one another, otherwise the comics just truly aren't being done justice. We've already seen Spider-Man merge with Venom once before on the big screen, but I think it's safe to say that most fans, as well as the companies involved in making the movies, wish we didn't remember. So let's all just agree that this never happened, and we'll never talk about it again, and let's just keep this video moving, shall we? Perhaps the most powerful host Venom could possibly choose is Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. That would be quite the sight. The most impressive force in the universe, combined with the deadly mentality and augmented abilities of Venom. Whoa, I'm not sure if that'd be a good thing or a bad thing, but I sure as heck would watch the crap out of it. Or perhaps Venom will latch onto Deadpool, another popular anti-hero. After all, two wrongs make a right? That is what they say, don't they? Getting two powerful characters with questionable morals paired up into one wisecracking, bad guy destroying unified force would be incredible to see. And it's not like they only have to choose one specific character for Venom to possess. They can give us a whole gambit of interesting pairings, just like in the comics. How about a Hulk Venom? Imagine the symbiote with that much raw strength and power? As if Hulk wasn't scary and unhinged enough, an alien parasite controlling his every move is a terrifying concept. Then again, now that he's matured into Professor Hulk, I'm not so sure he'd be as destructive. Definitely would still muck some stuff up though. There's also comic book precedents of perhaps the most interesting pairing, which is Venom merging with Groot. Imagine the alien symbiote taking over the tree-like hero on the big screen. That would be so cool. My only question is, would he say, "I am Venom"? Or perhaps the only host that would be more odd than Groot is Rocket Raccoon. This too already happened in the comics, and it was terrifying. Although Venom taking over Rocket, I think that's just called rabies, no? From a psychological perspective, it would be very interesting to see the rampaging symbiote take over the most morally sound character of all, Captain America. Steve Rogers is all about upholding justice and doing the right thing, but the same can't really be said for Venom. While he isn't outright evil, he definitely doesn't mind taking a few casualties or going against the grain, let's just say. Or maybe Venom takes a hold of Thor. After all, he's one of the strongest beings in the galaxy, and also, in a storyline sense, is kind of just gallivanting through the galaxy looking for something to do right now. Marvel obviously wants to keep using one of their most marketable characters, but he doesn't exactly have a compelling story to tell at the moment. Having Thor deal with an alien parasite creature would be a fascinating direction to take him after wrapping up everything post-Endgame. Despite all these potential hosts, there's one character that would be the ultimate pairing. I'm talking about Thanos. He already posed the greatest threat the MCU has ever seen, so just imagine him pairing up with Venom and how lethal a combination that could be. Thanos was the main villain of Phase 3, and pretty much the whole first decade of the MCU for that matter. He was borderline unstoppable. Even in his own words, he's inevitable. But the Avengers were able to pull off some shady time travel trickery and save the day in Endgame. Well, kind of. The universe might still be completely out of whack, and they may have messed up time forever, but whatever, no biggie. I guess we'll see. Bringing back Thanos in Phase 4, only this time better and stronger than before, would be nearly impossible for the team to overcome. Now, we've discussed several different potential hosts, but we haven't yet talked about all the different types of Venom. On the big screen, we've only seen the one version, but in the comic book source material, there's a whole bevy of Venoms with assorted abilities and levels of power. And they have names of their own too, like Riot, and Phage, and Lasher, and Mania, and Scream, and so many more. Those are just a small handful of them. Carnage is another Venom-esque symbiote, and has a slight edge over the OV, the original Venom, when it comes to power and potential for destruction. Carnage was created when Eddie Brock and the psychopathic murderer Cletus Cassidy end up cellmates in the comics. What's interesting about that is that Cletus actually makes a short appearance in the Venom movie, played by Woody Harrelson. He and Tom Hardy's character Eddie Brock do, in fact, interact, so that might have been Sony's way of dropping a hint that Carnage will make a debut in the upcoming sequel. There's also the Red Goblin, the result of Carnage merging with the Green Goblin. It doesn't get much worse than the Red Goblin. In the comics, Norman Osborn willingly merges with the symbiote to create this mega villain. This could play into the MCU, because it's rumored that Norman Osborn is set to be the next main villain in Marvel's upcoming Phase 4 and 5. Perhaps down the line we'll get Red Goblin on the big screen, giving the Avengers something new to worry about. Perhaps the strongest symbiote of them all, however, has to be Knull. I don't know if I said that right. Knull. Knull. The current Venom comic book series explains the backstory of all symbiotes, claiming that they're all spawns from one ancient god named Knull. Perhaps Knull will tie into this upcoming Eternals movie, which is expected to feature quite a bit of info about the Celestials and the beginning of superheroes in general. So how do you feel about Venom? Do you want to see him in the MCU? And if so, which character would you most like to see him possess? I think, personally, I want to see the Hulk. Deadpool would be pretty fun too. Let us know what you think in the comments section down below. Also, before you go, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to Screen Rant to stay up to date on all of our latest and greatest releases. Until next time, bye!